everybody. I'm Nikki Barnett. I know it's going to take you guys a few minutes to jump in, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I am a realtor with eProperty Realty. That's my technical full-time job, but my second full-time job is I'm an admin and I represent about 6,000 moms of New Braunfels on a page called Moms of New Braunfels Uncensored. And we don't just discuss mommy issues, we talk about everything. And a lot of the issues touch on things that the district attorney affects, such as crime within our city, how that's handled, spouses and children who are getting tangled up in legal issues. And so we are very excited to be hearing from the district attorney candidates as well as the current district attorney, Jennifer Tharp. This week I have lined up all 4 of them. So we're very, very lucky to get to sit and chat with these fine citizens and see kind of what they're up to. What do they have to offer us?
Wonderful. Why
you should vote for them. And our main thing is that you get out and vote. We're big candidates of the vote. So we are not endorsing any one candidate, just endorsing the vote. And I'm still open to be won over by any of these guys. So this is Joe Swanee. Yes?
Good evening. You got it. Yes.
Not Soane, not Swane.
Think Spanish phonetics.
I like
Soane.
I like Swane if it's open for debate.
I'll answer to it.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Sometimes I get an L in there, Sloan. I'll answer to that too.
You want to introduce yourself, and I'm gonna.
Sure.
Okay, good.
My name is Joe Swanee, even though it's spelled S-O-A-N-E. Y'all probably heard that more than once on my forums. I know that name can be an impediment, especially on a ballot. But I have 2 jobs. I'm currently a reserve deputy sheriff with the Comal County Sheriff's Office. Have been for almost 18 years now. That's hard to believe. It seems like just yesterday. But I'm also a senior assistant county attorney in Kerr County, Texas. I live on River Road, and yes, I commute to Kerrville every day to go to work. Everyone's floored by that, but I mean, if you think about it, a patrol shift in the patrol car is 12 hours long. It only takes me an hour to get to Kerrville. That's a blink for me. That's a real easy commute.
So you said you live off River Road?
I do.
That's awesome. So when I was I was in college between my freshman and sophomore and my sophomore junior years. Both years I worked on River Road.
Where'd you work for?
At Rockenar, Camp Waco Springs.
Oh, Eddie.
Yeah, with Eddie.
Good friend of mine.
Gillespie. And that's really where I first kind of got to know the SOs, as we called them.
Sure.
And it was so, we had a lot of fun. The guys would come over and they would let us patrol with them sometimes, walk through the parks, and we could kind of, get to see the handfuls that y'all got to put up with. And
it's a different world, yeah.
River Road is different, right?
Well, I think it's a lot more family oriented now. I mean, I think back to when I started this, and I'm not young enough to handle River Road now, back the way it was back then, but I refer to everyone on River Road as my River Road family. I mean, Paul and just everyone out there. I love everyone, and that's why I keep coming. That's why I've done it for 18 years. I just love them, and it's hard to give up. It's the job itself, but also the people.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it did seem like a family. And one day there was, those big water bugs, we call them Helgramites.
Yes.
The one officer that was patrolling that night tased one, and it did not die. And maybe they're not supposed to do that. I don't remember the name. Anyway, so
probably okay. I've seen one that there's a deputy that's several inches tall. I'm 6'4", and he makes me look tiny. And one of those landed on his shoulder, and you've never seen a giant man go, ooh, and just start slapping at his shoulder to get rid of it. It was a great time for me anyway. It was a great time. But,
that's awesome. So okay, first serious question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you say the alphabet backwards?
No.
You can't?
No.
You can't even try?
No, I can't try. I would never ask anyone to do that.
That's like a trick question, right?
It is a good trick question.
So you don't want to try?
No.
Okay.
Is that like a field sobriety test?
Yeah, it is. Well, so I've heard.
No.
Luckily, I've never been field sobriety tested. I have walked home from the bar several times.
Sure.
And, you can get in big trouble just for walking home, choosing not to drive. Maybe that's one of the issues that we need to be discussing.
I've seen it happen, and, folks, you got to have a common sense approach to law enforcement. I mean, if you're not driving a car, isn't that what we're after, is to make sure that someone isn't driving home?
Yes.
I mean, a lot of times I've seen cases like that, and I have dismissed many of them. This is a person that's done the right thing, and they're going to get credit for it. A lot of times you'll see a person that instead of trying to drive home, they just sleep in their car. And I've seen these men and women arrested for public intoxication. No, we're not going to do that.
You want, because, I think that's what we're looking for, all of us, is just a level of fairness.
Yes.
I mean, we get it that there's black and white, but we really live in a gray area a lot of times, and a lot of the decisions that you guys make, you have to use some discretion and judgment. And
absolutely. Now, understand I'll change the fact scenario for you a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say that you're the same person. You're walking home, but instead of just trying to walk home, you start banging on people's doors.
Or peeing in their yards.
I'm going to change the facts a little bit. Now, are you still comfortable letting that person continue on home?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
So we're on the same page.
Yes. Common sense.
Common sense approach.
I think so. So can you just briefly educate us, sum up the role of the district attorney? Because I think there is some confusion. I know that before, as I was doing my research and educating myself, I'm learning more and more. But, just in real layman's terms, can you sum up what it is that the district attorney does and how it affects us?
The simplest and easiest way to explain the DA is we're the people's lawyer. Okay, we serve as advisor on all the civil issues for Commissioner's Court. So anytime the people or the county or the agencies require legal advice, they come to us. Now, I'm referring to county government. There's also city government. There's a city attorney that advises, city personnel and on city issues. But a big part of what the DA's office is attorney for the county. Okay. Now, that also involves criminal prosecution, and that's what most people hear about. The lion's share of the activities in the DA's office is to represent the people of the state of Texas in the lawsuit that is a criminal trial. Okay, only the state's attorney, and that's the DA's office and the DA and their deputies have the ability to bind legally the state of Texas. You'll hear sometimes where people start talking about, I want the judge to dismiss a case. Well, judges don't dismiss cases, okay? Prosecutors do. Since we are the plaintiff, if you think analogous to a civil case, we are the plaintiffs, we bring the case. In the state of Texas, the state of Texas is the victim in criminal cases. And I know this is kind of a touchstone issue for a lot of your viewers. On a family violence call, let's say an officer makes an arrest on a family violence call. The case gets sent to the prosecution office, and the lady or man involved wants to not prosecute. I want to sign a non-prosecution affidavit, and they send that over to the DA's office. It's actually the people of the state of Texas that's the victim in the case. So is a non-prosecution affidavit dispositive necessarily? No, not necessarily, because this is how the victim expresses his or herself, but the victim is the state of Texas. And that's in all crimes. And to kind of touch on what you were describing on a public intoxication case where a person is urinating in the yard or banging on doors, the victim is the people of the state of Texas.
Right.
Make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because there's some issues that were brought up in my group, such as paternal rights, which, do you have kids?
I don't have kids.
So a lot of dads, when they go through a divorce, they lose a lot of their rights with their children. And then, on the flip side of that, a lot of fathers, don't pay child support. And there's a whole lot of that goes on that really the Attorney General handles. you know, and I think that's some confusion as to kind of where those lines are drawn, you know, but I just wanted to kind of clarify, at least for some of my audience, that, you know, those are important topics, but not necessarily topics that you guys could affect.
Usually the only time that we would get involved in issues that you're describing, there is a crime, criminal non-payment of child support. That is a criminal offense. But I will tell you that it is usually reserved for the most, you know, egregious of cases when we're talking about years of non-payment. There is also a criminal offense for interference with child custody. And again, this is something that's reserved for the most egregious cases.
So there are times that you guys touch on that, but it's not something that y'all typically...
It's very seldom.
Yeah.
It's very seldom. Normally, we're anxious for those issues to be resolved in civil court. I mean, if you think about it, if you want to pursue a case for criminal non-support, what's going to happen? You file a criminal case and the person is arrested and taken to court. Do you believe anyone out there that this person will be more or less able to cover that debt? It's a situation where in the worst cases that a case can be filed in an attempt to try to encourage someone to do the right thing. And I know that sounds silly. A person shouldn't need to be encouraged to do the right thing, but is it a tool that can be used to help someone that's desperate? Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
I think so too.
But usually a tool of last resort.
So, have we really dove into why you decided to run?
Not really.
I mean, I know you touched on your intro a little bit, but this is not something that people flippantly jump into, is a race like this, or even a position. I mean, I don't think it seems really fun to be the district attorney. I mean, was this on your goal list?
No. And in fact, this job in particular, this DA's office, is in a sorry state. Our DA's office is an embattled office. And when I say that, I mean they have an antagonistic relationship with every other county department. And I urge everyone, there's no need to take my word for it. Reach out to your district clerk's office or reach out to your county clerk's office. Talk to a deputy sheriff. Talk to a judge. You know, y'all live in this community. You live near all of your public servants. Talk to them and ask them what they think. So there's no question. I mean, for about the past year, as I just buy my groceries or patrol or whatever, as I move about the county, I've been receiving sometimes gentle, sometimes not so gentle encouragement to run for DA, and it's because of a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. The DA's office, I think, has moved very far from its intended or core purpose, and that is to provide representation. As I move around the county, I also talk to some elected officials. I do talk to some of them, but I also talk to the people that are actually the ones that run the county, and these are the people that know where all the paperwork goes. These are the people that fix the cars. These are the people that fix the streets. As I talk to them, almost uniformly, their response about the DA's office or its role is that, Joe, we don't feel comfortable ordering a case of paper towels without getting the DA's signature. And it seems like the DA's office in our county has morphed into basically micromanaging every aspect of county business. And in addition to that, the DA, current DA, I think you'll hear her say constantly that she is tough on crime. And when you hear, I think, the incumbent say that, what you hear is I'm oppressive. And just to give you an example, you know, I speak to everyone. I do speak to the defense bar. I want to be their DA too. And I frequently meet with them, and I had one attorney that I spoke to, just by way of example. He has a client who has a possession of marijuana case, and keep in mind this is in the order of a joint, okay, one marijuana cigarette. his offer to settle the case was 180 days in jail. Okay, that is the maximum penalty for a Class B misdemeanor. The attorney kindly told the assistant DA to get your witnesses together. We're going to have a trial. And currently, the DA's office has a backload of thousands of cases. Okay, this is both in misdemeanor and felony court. So envision that fact scenario playing itself out over 1,000 times, and you understand why our clearance rate, or the speed at which we clear cases, is so low. It's at 50%.
Because, so, just to bring this down to my level a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
So when this individual is given the option of 180 days, that's basically what happens,
sure.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they can decide to accept that or
reject it, yes.
So when they reject it, what happens in that situation?
Basically, there's no give on the side of the prosecutor, so it's set for trial. And in our county, since remember all the way back to our conversation about who is the plaintiff, it's the people, and it's since the incumbent is the DA, they decide whether or not to settle a case without a trial. Because remember, since the people of the state of Texas are the victim, they are the ones that bring the case, they are the plaintiffs, and they have a right to a jury trial too. However, asserting it under these facts is extraordinarily wasteful for the taxpayers.
And so typically, in other counties or in the past in our county, there is some negotiation room.
Yes.
Because that's what I do, is negotiate for a living. And I know how frustrating that must be to hear no bottom line, that's it.
Right.
And so 180 days, that's what you guys consider these max sentences?
Yes, so for a Class B misdemeanor, that's the most jail time you can get.
So, because I heard a lot of discussion about max sentencing, and that's common. I mean, that's kind of what's the standard, you would say?
And that's just by way of example. Let me give you another example. I met with a young lady whose son was arrested for narcotics, possession of a controlled substance. And keep in mind, this is not a dealer. This is a person, a young man that's addicted, okay? This is an addict. The first offer in his case was 19 years in the penitentiary. He's never been in trouble before. And I talked to this mother, and she said her son turned 20 years old in county jail awaiting trial. And he spent almost 2 years. For me, this is unconscionable. I cannot envision a case or a fact scenario where a 19-year-old kid needs 19 years in the penitentiary for a first-time possession where he is ill, where he is sick and needs treatment. So
what would be, if you were the district attorney, how would you like to see that scenario played out? What could you do for that young man or others like him who are suffering, who don't have a lot of prior judgments against them, who aren't necessarily selling, endangering others? What could you do?
What I'm hearing basically on this fact scenario is this is a boy who has made a mistake, okay? My every effort is to try to treat the issue first. And we're very blessed in this county. Judge Waldrop has a challenge court. This is basically a court designed around treatment. And if the person is successful in making it through the program in challenge court, the charges are dismissed. And that's absolutely appropriate. And especially in cases like this where it's a young person that has made a mistake. The problem is not many cases are being referred to this program. Okay, our county has a challenge court, it has a DWI court, and it has a veterans court.
And these are the specialty courts.
Absolutely true.
And tell me what I don't want to sidetrack too much, but just educate. What is a specialty court? What does that what does that really look like and mean?
What this is all designed to do is to give an alternate disposition. Instead of going through the criminal process and being either convicted or placed on deferred adjudication in an ordinary sense, this is an opportunity to take an avenue of treatment, to go through a program to assist the person in getting well and being productive outside of going through the criminal justice system. And it's designed for intoxication or narcotics related issues. So think about a veterans court. We have a lot of veterans that come back from overseas sick. They have post-traumatic stress disorder. They have brain injury, traumatic brain injuries, and inevitably they will try to self-medicate. And these are the people that we need to be trying most for.
Yes.
And I will tell you that in 2017, the incumbent at the DA's office referred 5 cases to the Veterans Court, just 5. I was at a forum, and I met with one of the coordinators for one of the specialty courts, and I'm a big fella. I'm large, I'm 6'4", I'm tall, and I'm fat. And she grabbed me to a halt, and she said, she was so frustrated with the DA's office, she said that she is not referring cases to the specialty courts, and when she does so, it's when they've been on bond for like a year and a half, when they're back in the same circumstances and the same environment that created the issue that they have. So the treatment is less effective. So they don't use the programs, and even when they do, it's not correctly. It's such a protracted and delayed effort to get them in there, and it's got to be fast.
So how many times a year? I mean, so you say 5. How many should it be? I mean, what is the statistics as far as veterans that we're seeing into our systems?
I will tell you that as a candidate, they're not going to give me that information. Okay, now it's collected when a person is booked into the jail. They'll ask about prior military service, and that's something that the DA definitely has access to. But myself as a candidate, they're not going to, and they shouldn't give me that information. Okay. It's confidential, so I can't tell you exactly how many. But if your question is, if this is a person that and it's an intoxication related issue or a narcotics related issue, and we're not talking dealing, we're talking addict. Okay, my intent or my desire would be to fill the program. I want to max the program. I want to use it at every opportunity, and then beyond that, it's to go to the judges and the commissioners on bent knee and beg for more money for the program. Currently, last year in 2017, we as taxpayers paid $1.8 million housing prisoners out of county.
Right.
That money could easily be turned around, and just a portion of which could be applied to expand those programs. It's an investment in people instead of wasting it warehousing people that don't belong there.
I love that. Yeah, an investment in people. Very well said. To me, that is really the heart of what you guys can offer to our county as far as dealing with crimes, being tough on crime. I get that, and especially when there are violent and there's people that just need to get the hammer, but
there certainly are, and you won't hear any of us disagreeing about that. There's no candidate. I mean, that 5% that when we're dealing with a violent or dangerous person, we all know how to deal with those people. And when I say we, it's the 3 challengers, certainly, Ms. Tharp, I question, but 3 challengers were all trial lawyers.
And y'all have an opportunity to really reach into their lives and make a difference for the better, because
absolutely. Let me give you an example, okay, if we have time.
I think we're doing good.
Okay. Was a brand new cop? He just gets hired. He gets all of his equipment. They put him out on the street. What does a young guy think being a cop is? Writing everyone a ticket and taking everyone to jail, right? I mean, that's what a young guy or a gal thinks being a cop is. It doesn't take very long on the street to learn that being a police officer is being there for the people that you serve. I mean, I've changed more tires that I don't own. I bought more gas that I didn't burn. I paid for more fast food that I didn't eat. It's being there for people, and you learn that pretty quickly, and it's really, really fast. That's what keeps you doing this job. Do we all like to catch a bad guy? Yeah, but it's being the hero. It's being the person that you need when you need them. What is a young prosecutor? When they get out of school, they get their ticket, and they get hired by the DA's office. What does being a prosecutor mean? Putting everyone in jail, right? Okay. So she has not ever spent time working a misdemeanor or felony docket. She doesn't understand what it means to be a prosecutor, and that's being there for people when you need them. She just doesn't have that experience. It's the easiest way I can explain it. She never graduated beyond that initial stage.
So I could see how that would maybe affect the heart, because when you are out there working the streets and you really get to see these people, and not just the ones that you're locking up, but you respond to distress calls and accidents. And,
absolutely.
Those are the faces that really...
People, I'll tell you what really keeps me doing this job, even though I'm too old to be doing it. What keeps me doing it is that look of relief on people's faces when they see you driving up, that everything is going to be okay. And that could be changing a tire, and that could be interrupting a family violence case.
And do you think that's what you're going to miss the most if you get elected?
I will miss it. I will miss it. There's no doubt. There's a lot that I'm giving up to do this, and I'm okay with it, because I'll get to see the other side of it. I'll get to help. And that's honestly that's why I'm doing this. People reached out begging for help, and that's what I'm here for. And I had a friend of mine. He's a local attorney. I was under the impression he was going to run, and I said, "Well, Tom, if you're going to run, I can go home and eat Cheetos. I don't have to worry about running for DA." But he didn't do it. But it's about helping when you're needed, and
hopefully people will have that look on their face when you show up as the DA as well.
Yes, that's the dream.
So that's good. And so you mentioned the 3 other candidates, not the incumbent. I have this sense, and it was very apparent at the Harold's Eye Tongue Roundtable. There's this almost 3 against 1 camaraderie.
Well, I don't want to say that. I had a supporter come up. I was talking to Mr. DeLamos. And he said, "Well, you're running against Steve." And I said, "Well, that's not very accurate." I said, I'm running against the incumbent, and Steve is running also. I'm not, Mr. DeLamos. If I slip, I've known Mr. DeLamos for almost 25 years. I've known him a long time. So I might slip and use his first name, and I don't want anyone to think that that's any sort of disrespect. I'm friends with Mr. DeLamos. I've known him a long time. But no, I'm not running against Mr. DeLamos. I think he is also running against Ms. Tharp.
Can I ask you a hard question? You don't have to
Fire
answer.
away.
We can do static.
Fire away.
So, out of the candidates, who would you vote for if you had to vote?
Well, I think the other 2 that are running against Ms. Tharp, I think they're probably their primary problem is they're almost as good as I am. They're just somewhat inferior to me, but
luckily you don't have that problem.
Great.
So let's see, what are your thoughts on juvenile law? I know we talked a little bit about it, but what are the problems that you see? How can you there's a special system that juveniles go through, correct?
Yes.
Do you see any holes in that right now? Or do they go through the same specialty courts? I'm assuming that they have different programs.
The juvenile system itself is geared towards rehabilitation. The reason why there are no consequences usually carried over into the adult system is because children make mistakes. Their brains are not fully developed, and I met a lot of children that didn't have the advantages that you and I have had. They didn't have someone that explained to them they need to get up and go to school in the morning, and to clean themselves up, and to clean their rooms, and to learn to be young men and women. They just didn't have those experiences, and the goal of that, the goal of the juvenile system, is to rehabilitate, and so it is quite different from the adult system. Now, when we start getting into actually trying juvenile cases, if that's necessary, and that's supposed to be the vast minority of the times and only for the worst offenses, then you start talking about a criminal law. But really what we're dealing with is the family code, and that's because this isn't designed necessarily to be a criminal proceeding. It's geared towards rehabilitation. Now, in the most egregious of cases, can a child be taken to court and certified as an adult? There is that procedure, but honestly, it's very rare, very rare.
So you feel pretty good about the status of what's going on in juvenile courts as it is?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm satisfied. I always am geared towards, when it comes to juveniles rehabilitation, it has to be the catchword on that. I'm not a favor of a detention unless there is no alternative. Now, folks, understand, when we're talking about the need for a detention, sometimes a little time is needed to find a placement for the child to go. And I mean, some of the situations out there are quite desperate. They don't have a mother or father that's paying any attention to these children. They're off doing other things, and other family members have to be located.
And a lot of times it is a red flag and a cry for help. And
there's no question, yes. But the vast majority of these kids, like I said, just did not have a lot of the experiences that you or I take for granted. And that is simply having someone be there.
And for children and adults, sometimes getting caught, getting busted, getting arrested can be a great turning point for them.
Yes.
And that really is the goal.
Yes.
We don't want to just lock up, especially kids, but anybody.
No, that's a remedy of last resort.
Yes. So I can definitely see, what you're saying seems to be indicative of a problem as a whole of not getting to the treatment of the heart issue frequently enough.
Yes, and it really is a tragedy in the situation, and I unfortunately I have to touch that issue and talk about money, because some people are insensitive to that, and so, but I can still touch their heart if I talk about all the money that's being wasted, and that's absolutely true. And it doesn't, the dollars and cents absolutely do not take into consideration the human cost of what the current administration is doing. And it's a constant tragedy every day.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be a downer.
No, I mean, but it's, I shared with you a little bit how my family has been touched by this. And, I have 5 little faces
Sure.
that are behind one of those cases, and I know they're very grateful that their dad was offered a treatment alternative to the 5 years that he was supposed to get, or not supposed to, but was offered. And so, for their sake, I'm, like you said, there's a tragedy behind every locked cell. There's sad,
What I'm doing this for is for your children.
Yeah.
I urge everyone to think one day she's going to get to somebody that you know, if not one of yours.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
And having
that's what keeps me motivated.
And having that hope that having someone that you love locked up, when they come out, they're going to be more than likely in a sad state. And
sure,
feeling like they just survived prison, and having them go through a rehabilitation process, I know that I have a glimmer of hope that maybe my kids will get their dad back in a better state than when he went in, hopefully. And that's worth a lot to me.
It's certainly in the prison, but I'll back it off to our original example. Let's talk about that one marijuana joint case, okay? If the offer is 180 days, I think the statistics are pretty prevalent that most working Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And when I say most, that's 76%, okay? And then you look at another statistic that 46% of working folks don't have $400 saved up for an emergency without using a credit card or some form of credit. Wow. So you put a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day jail sentence on them. What are we asking them to do? Well, I've asked them to lose their house, lose their car, put their family on the street. Well, how is that productive? Okay, what I've done is take a person that's productive and a taxpaying member of society, and made them unable to care for themselves and a tax burden. Does that make sense?
And yes, it is, and it is incredibly hard to start over.
Yes. Yes.
The person I'm talking about has no home, no job, no vehicle, and this is.
Well, think about that. We go fill out a job application. What's the first? Have you ever been convicted or placed on deferred adjudication for any criminal offense? That
is really a tough thing, and sometimes it is the lesson that is needed. Like you were talking about, there's people that deserve that.
So I love these specialty courts. That is something that I would go to bat for. If we can save money on the jail side, if we're not wasting $1.8 million, for the incumbents' jail therapy, that can be reinvested into people. We can expand the program.
That's very cool. Yeah, it seems like it's an unused resource, really.
No question.
Yeah.
But remember, all it is the discretion of the incumbent.
That's a lot of power.
It is a lot of power.
Wow. Okay, so speaking of children, I have to bring up Child Protective Services.
Sure.
Are they the hero? Are they the bad guy?
Yes.
Yes. I know as it comes up almost weekly, Child Protective Services, in our group topics. And it can be a terrifying factor for many mothers.
There's no question. I can't think of anything worse than having a child removed from home.
No. And on the flip side, what a huge burden and sacrifice that these workers have taken to step up and say, yes, I will represent these children. And what's the balance there? What do you see? It's a huge issue. It
really is, and it's so big. It's hard to break it up into pieces. I will tell you that I've seen CPS work some miracles. I've seen them save some children in some desperate circumstances that you folks just simply wouldn't believe. I've also seen them remove children that don't need to be removed, and that's the scariest part.
Yes. Open a case, but taking the children should be the very last.
I'll tell you a story. This is almost 20 years ago. As a young attorney, I had a young mother. She was 19 years old and had her baby was removed from the home. In essence, because she didn't return a phone call timely enough.
Wow.
And she didn't have her child back until Monday, and I gave her both barrels in the courtroom, I can tell you that. But like I said, I've seen good and I've seen bad. I've seen both, and I'm like I said, you want to err on the side of caution, but I watch CPS very closely, and I think people demand it, and I think that's what they want from me, is to watch CPS very closely. Like I said, I've seen a lot of good, but I've seen a lot of not good. We're dealing when we're talking about someone's children, we're dealing with fundamental rights. It's not only that, it's fundamental rights, but it's an inherent aspect of our species. To be protective of our children.
And I can imagine the effect that has on a mother or a father to have their children removed. But for a child, from their perspective, to be removed from their home, from their
always
parents.
Tragic. No matter how desperate the situation.
That has to be just, and of course, there's the situations where they need to be removed, where the children are probably grateful to be removed from an abusive home. I mean, if they could even see so clearly. But
it's been my experience that it's hard for them even in a bad situation. It's the children don't judge their parents; they just love them, and it's always tragic. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of super foster parents. I mean, I know some hero foster parents.
Yeah, I do too. We have several in our group.
Perfect, and I hope they share their experiences, because, I mean, I know a couple. They're now elderly, but they'd taken care of over 20 children throughout their participation. It really amazing people, but children, it's always hard because they don't judge their parents. They just love them. It is always
I
sad.
could see that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, so what can be done? What authority do you have to make any changes on that front to ensure that?
Well, sure. In this county, it's not in every county. CPS does have attorneys, and they do handle their own caseload in some counties. In our county, we do act as the attorneys for CPS. So, if I were the DA, obviously, this is one of the things that I watch very closely, and I want to be involved especially in the major decisions, and not, when I say major decision, a removal. I want to know.
Every time there's a removal.
Yes, and I am available. This isn't a situation. I mean, when I back in 2007, I was chief felony prosecutor in this county, and I was available 24 hours a day, and I attended every major crime scene, and that's lost nowadays. Our DA doesn't do that. But that will continue if I'm elected. And yes, day or night, I am available, and I expect to be advised and made aware of something as serious as removing a child.
That's really powerful. Just being, I mean, that's a huge amount of power for CPS. It's a huge amount of power for you. I mean, it's really important that whoever is in that position can be trusted. Well,
and that's why this is so critical. It's so important that we have the correct personality making these decisions. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, a lot of these things are, a mother's nightmare, no matter how old their child is, whether it's their...
You think of the worst thing that could happen, it always involves children.
Yes, yeah. And even grown children.
And rightfully so.
And even grown children sometimes, and
I'm always a kid to my mom.
That's
I'm always,
right.
Yes, that's true. That worry never goes away, and you see it in the TIFA meetings. Like I tell everyone, I go to anyone that will want to listen to me or want to talk to me. I've gone to TIFA meetings, and if your readers or viewers or whatever you call them are not familiar with TIFA, it's a support group for families of people that are incarcerated. So it's mothers and fathers and spouses and everyone, and it's basically a support group for people that are incarcerated. And I go to their meetings and I listen to them because I want to hear what they have to say. I want to be their DA too. So absolutely, and I think the candidate that you select needs to do all these things. This is something that I think is expected. I owe it to the people that I serve.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like a huge commitment.
It is.
Because to be on call, my clients know I'm on call 24/7, but much less stress. So I know that is a personality type as well, but
it's what I do.
It has to be a calling. You have to love it and really feel called to it and committed to it. And just speaking with you, it sounds like you really do have a heart to help the people all the people, even the bad people. If you have
That's
to help
part of
them.
the job too, and a lot of people don't understand that. I have to be just as ardent about protecting the accused as I do convicting him if they need it. And think about this. Think about, and this happens. Think about a false accusation of sexual assault. Think about someone that says that they were raped and wasn't. Just the allegation can destroy somebody's life. I need to be as ardent and careful about protecting the accused as I do, as ardent as I am convicting them if it's necessary.
So now let's talk about, I think you called it the 5%,
Yes.
the how you said it eloquently, the dangerous
Yes.
and the
violent,
violent and dangerous. Yes. When you have identified an individual in that category, they lose rights. When they're back released, they lose rights to have guns.
Oh, yes.
And is there anything currently being done to kind of help ensure that, first let me say I'm a gun owner, I'm a Texan, I'm a Republican, I carry.
As you should. Responsible gun ownership is a deterrent to crime.
I don't want to talk about, any limitations on that right, but some people have lost that right.
Yes.
And is there anything being done to help ensure that they don't have access to guns, that they don't, that maybe the guns that they do have are taken away from them? Is there anything in place in our county? I mean, I know there's other counties that have some measure that helps take guns out of the hands of criminals.
No, you're fine. If I'm understanding, and you stop me if I'm not understanding, but if I'm understanding you correctly, we're talking about a person that's been convicted of a felony and gets out of prison, or are we talking?
Yes, someone has been proven, and especially in domestic violence cases, and specifically talking about a gun surrender program, to where they are, maybe working with the authorities to be law-abiding. Okay,
well, for your example, what we're really talking about is a person who's been placed on supervision or probation for family violence. Is that a better scenario?
Yes, but not just suspect,
after they've been to court and they've pled out or been found guilty and placed on supervision.
Yes.
They're attending family violence, they're attending a batterers intervention program, they're attending family violence courses. This is the person that we're talking about. Well, if you are on supervision, you have no right to own or be around a firearm. One of your conditions of supervision states exactly that. And I tell you, if you want to make the judge upset and you want to guarantee that you will not be successful on supervision, then yes, that's one of the things that you can look forward to. You need to keep away from guns. When you're on supervision, the probation department, your probation officer, has the ability to search your house. One of the things that you do is you agree that I will permit my house to be searched. You're agreeing to home visits. And the supervision officers absolutely go into your house. And now, can you say no? Well, this is America. You can say no. Now, is there a price that you have to pay? Absolutely. Yeah. There certainly is a consequence.
But that takes a level of resources.
Yes.
To actually go and search people's homes.
Yes.
It's not very common in our county, I'm assuming.
No, because of the numbers. Now, I've heard programs suggested that involve kind of what you're describing as far as a not a buyback, but a surrender program. It's kind of like, I'm going to tell you folks straight out that it's kind of like grabbing a fish. It's real hard to do and it's slippery.
It seems there seems to be a lot of complications with that, because it could be as simple as just hiding it really well.
That's true.
We're Texans, so...
Or they're transferred to somebody else, like a family member.
We're really good at keeping our guns.
Yes, and I'm not saying that it's not something that can be looked at, but think about it in terms of enforcement. How do you enforce that? How do you You know, if a person's on supervision, well, I don't have any guns here. I gave them to Dad, and Dad says, yeah, I have his guns. He gave them to me.
And even if it is surrendered, it is so easy to acquire a gun.
Sure. Well, and think about in terms of person-to-person transfers. Those are absolutely legal.
Mm-hmm.
But
no background check required.
How do you know? You know, so it's kind of like I see where you're headed, and it's kind of like grabbing a fish.
I can see that. You know, it's with Sutherland Springs hitting so close to home,
yes.
And you know, there was some very close ties
yes.
to that within our group. You know, family loss. A family member of his was in our group. You know,
sorry.
And he had that history of, you know, domestic violence, and it seems like a lot of these mass shootings, they have these red flags of family violence.
There's no question.
And you know, just as a woman representing women, to me it seems like something that we should keep looking for an answer to. And you're absolutely right about how can that be done. It seems almost impossible, but I guess there are some counties who are somewhat successful with it. So I'm glad you're open to maybe just learning more, figuring it out. And it's
this isn't a deal where I mean we have an incumbent that is all about edicts and, you know, ordering what she wants to happen. What I'm more interested in is getting together with all the parties involved and trying to find a joint solution, and I'm certainly open to it. It just is finding the program that's the right balance. I mean, think about ladies and gentlemen out there. Think about your own. If you've had a family violence situation, and perhaps your spouse, your son, your father, whomever, successfully went through the program and is able to acquire the coping skills that we all hope that they acquire in this treatment program. How do we separate that family violence case from the person? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it would have to be crafted very carefully, because I don't want to lump everyone together and punish everyone.
Right. Well, and
you know,
we definitely don't want our rights infringed upon, and it
absolutely.
is a delicate situation. So you just mentioned family violence.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about protective orders.
Okay.
What does it take right now for a woman to get a protective order, or a man? And do you feel like that's sufficient, or is it? Go ahead, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, what it takes is basically to go over to the center, and basically the application and all the information is collected there. And obviously, if there's a companion family violence case, you know, that there also that is taken into consideration as well. But basically, the center collects all the information and vets you know, the cases, and then sends them over to the DA's office for review and ultimate filing. Does every fact pattern fit for a protective order? No. Some facts don't fit. But a lot of those are usually catched by the crisis center. They're very good at what they do, and their vetting process works. And unfortunately, when we see the protective order numbers that are coming out of the current administration, they're very low. I hear you know, a lot about in these forums that she talks about the increase in requests for protective orders, but I don't see the increase in filing. I see her referencing family violence numbers going up, but I don't see the prosecution going up. So somewhere we're dropping the ball. Somewhere something is not right. If family violence cases, as she likes to say, have gone up 48%, then I should be seeing 48% increases elsewhere, and I'm not seeing it. So I think the machine is broken right now, and I worry for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to, you know, I think sometimes women feel voiceless, and
I'll give you two scenarios where women are voiceless. I'll give you the first scenario that this is a lady that wants to pursue charges, but or wants a protective order and is not helped. Okay, I'll give you a second situation how they're powerless, where they want to reconcile and don't wish to pursue charges, and they are ignored, and charges are pursued anyway. And there's two areas where women are voiceless. It is not just one. So I see both. I mean, the code states very clearly that we are not to use the criminal system to re-victimize and to subject women to more mental and emotional stress from the criminal justice process. I mean, like our example back at the start of it. I mean, is a man or a woman that comes in and files a non-prosecution affidavit, is that dispositive? Well, sometimes. I mean, doesn't it have to be sometimes?
Yeah.
It just goes, all it goes back into is having the right personality making the decisions.
Being fair and reasonable.
Yes.
Because
I have ladies that come to me and they say they're sick over having to go through this trial when they don't want, they've reconciled, they're back together, the parties involved have gone to counseling, and the DA's office is not sensitive to that. And we're not talking about someone that's a repeat offender. This is a first-timer.
So of course, there's always exceptions, but as a rule, you think that it should be the woman's right to drop charges? I
think it needs to be respected. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If I see the patterns that you were talking about earlier in a person's behavior, if I see things that to me are indicators of violence, then respectfully, for everyone's protection, I have to go forward. But understand that that's a measured response. When we're talking about the duties of a DA, Article 2.01 of the Code of Criminal Procedure makes it very clear that our duty is to see that justice is done. Conviction rates do not enter into it, okay? It's to see, in one case, justice might demand going forward with a case. In another case, justice might demand dismissing. Does that make sense?
That's exactly right. I mean, justice looks different.
That's why she wears a blindfold. One set of rules for everyone, fair and impartial.
Yeah. I just realized I'm hearing myself over here. I thought someone was outside the whole time.
Oh, well, there's like 3 computers in there.
Yeah.
It's 3 computers.
This is awesome. So I feel like we've hit pretty much everything on my list. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over? I feel like we've done a really good job of covering a bunch of topics. I don't know how I can turn my volume
I don't know. Is there anyone that needs to hear anything out there? Is there any questions?
We do have some questions. Let me turn my volume down on this. Does Mr. Swanee know Jay Tharp when she first started as the DA? If yes, would he say that who she was in the beginning is different than who she is now? Could Mr. I'm going to botch your name every time, Swanee,
there you go,
be elected in the role of DA, and after seeing so much negativity, change toward the proud stance of the current DA has regarding being tough on crime? That's from Tammy Wood.
Yes, I knew Ms. Tharp when yes is the short answer, and she used to be a real person. Okay, she used to be funny and witty and charming and now yes, she is different, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've got to tell you the truth, but yes, And as far as the question, will it change me? All I can tell you is, the man, as I sit here before you, I've been doing this over 20 years. I've been looking at crime scenes and horrors and things that you folks can't imagine. And I'm still the same man. I can still cry. I patrol the streets and I see things, and I'll give you an example. You know, police officers are wired different. We just run towards things that other people run away from. And I'll liken it to, I remember an injury accident that I saw. And as we're all racing to get to the scene of the accident, what do I see when I'm running up to the car? And as I'm running past all this debris and I'm running towards fire, I see the child's shoe, okay? I know what I'm about to look at in that car, okay? It hasn't beaten me yet, and I can still cry, and I can still, I've still embraced my humanity, and I still do this because I love what I do. I love the people I serve. Do I experience horrific situations? Yes. Do I wield amazing and frightening authority? Yes. But I still respect it, and I still know that this authority emanates from the people that I serve. I never forget that. There was a case. Can I bore you with a story? There was a case years ago, and it involved a young lady that really was her daddy's pride and joy. And when I say that this was an amazing young lady, she was 19 years old. She was valedictorian of her class. This is a lady who wanted to become a doctor so that she could go back into her little neighborhood and serve her family and friends. And this is on the south side of San Antonio where she lived. Her father was a truck driver, and he's everything that you'd envision. He was big and strong and so proud of his little girl. And one night she was driving home to visit her family, and a wrong-way driver on I-35 took her life. And I have never seen a crash scene this bad. It haunts me to this day. And throughout this process, you live these cases with the families, okay? You never really stop working these cases. When you're in the shower, you're thinking about trial strategy, even though the trial is months away. You keep a pad next to the bed because lucidity doesn't watch a clock, and you might have an idea or inspiration in the middle of the night. I remember more than once being, the recipient of the girl's, her father's righteous rage, and I bore it. And after a protracted litigation, it wound up with a prison sentence for the person responsible. And I remember how broken her family was, having to look at the videos and look at the pictures of this. And her mother hugged me for a long time, and we cried together in the courtroom. And I told you that story to get you to understand a little bit of what it's like to do what I do for a living. These are experiences that the incumbent does not have and has not had. But I was standing with a young prosecutor once, and the father, who's a Teamster, was reading me the riot act, and I absolutely bored and listened to everything he had to say and said yes sir, no sir. And the young prosecutor was incredulous, couldn't believe that I stood there and listened to it, and asked me why. And I said, because that's John Q. Citizen. He pays the bills and he's the boss. He didn't get to pick me as the one to take care of the person that destroyed his daughter's life, so I owe him my best. That's what this job is about. Good question.
Good answer.
It's just the truth. I don't have to make it up. It's the easy.
Right.
All I have to do is tell you the truth. Anything else?
So we did touch on a little bit with communication breakdown between the offices.
Yes. Yes.
Would you like to expound from, as an officer, your experiences? Is there any validity to these claims of a breakdown in communication between the DA's office and your office?
Near the beginning of our interview, I referred to our DA's office as embattled. And the reason I say that is because they have an antagonistic relationship with every other county office. We have a DA who threatens other department heads. We have a DA that belittles officers in case submission. And I want y'all to think about that. We have our officers who face life and death situations every day that don't feel comfortable asking their attorney for advice. Okay, that's huge. So yes, I think what I bring to the table is I've lived both sides. I understand both, and honestly, first day is and everyone else wins, and the DA's office loses, and we're going to turn it around, and we're going to start living and being the people that we're supposed to be, and the police agencies are going to be able to count on us, and county officials are going to be able to ask us for advice and get good quality advice.
So now that you're a politician,
I hate that. I'm a great prosecutor. I'm a lousy politician.
You lost so much credibility when you became a politician.
I know it. And I want, when you say you're a politician, I want to say, you take that back. Go ahead.
You can't smack me on camera.
No.
But so, of course, and even as a human, you have all these great ideas, all these things you want to implement. I'm excited, if you get elected, to see some of the changes that you're going to make. How quickly do you expect to be able to implement these changes? I know the caseload is super overwhelming. You're not going to catch up to that in a week or a month or even a couple of years.
Absolutely. Some of the things, I've got a 100-day plan. I love President Trump. That's going to make some people out there probably not appreciate that.
We just went down. We lost a few viewers.
I'm sorry. I still love President Trump. I'm going to have a 100-day plan that I'm about to release. And absolutely, some of these things that we're going to be able to fix day one. And certainly, we're going to have a culture of service. There's going to be a sea change in attitude at that office, and I promise you. Some of these things are going to be fixed day one. And I promise you that. And there are certain people out there that y'all are thinking of, and that's the problem that can be fixed day one. But a lot of this, when we're talking about expanding the programs, the first idea or the first necessity is to fill it. Fill the program, and then I'm going to go back and say, since we're saving all this money, let's reinvest it in people and let's expand the programs. So some of this is going to be very easy to accomplish within 100 days, and that's the goal that I've set. I intend to keep, on all my campaign literature, you're going to see phone numbers. That's my phone number. It rings right in here, and that's going to continue. You people need to be able to access your electeds, and communication is part of it. I intend to have a rotation for on-call. There's always going to be an assistant DA available. The only person that's not going to be on the rotation is me, because I'm always available, and I expect to attend all major crime scenes. But is my plan ambitious? Of course it is, but I've done it before. I know it works. When I left the DA's office here in 2007, our jury docket was 3 to 5 cases long, okay? It is now 300 plus awaiting trial. These are things that, and keep in mind, folks, the reason that we get into the position that we're in is...
That's a lot.
Yes, and it's a whole... If it's continued with the current administration, remember, if she's reelected, things are not going to change. It's going to continue to grow. Put somebody in there like myself and I will fix it. It's not going to be overnight, but I can tell you with the expansion of these programs and actually trying cases, do y'all know that today, in 2018, y'all aren't trying any more cases than I did back in 2007, and there were just 2 of us doing the job? Did you know that? Mm-mm. But her budget's increased $1.6 million.
So a lot more resources, a lot more staff.
But things remain level, output remains level, or in some cases goes down. I can fix that, and honestly, these are we can start turning things around in the 100-day plan. But like I said, some of the stuff I can fix day one.
Do you think? I mean, people sitting in jail.
Yes.
How do you think they feel about this upcoming election? This is going to affect them.
Yes.
Greatly, probably more than most, I would
Yes.
say. They have vested interest.
Well, who's getting the jail therapy right now? Who's the one suffering through it?
Because a lot of them are just still awaiting trial.
Yes. Now, what they refer to as jail therapy, what the current administration, that's the euphemism they've coined. What they refer to as jail therapy, I look at as you're incarcerating someone that hasn't been convicted yet. Don't get me wrong. Some people need to be in jail, and some people need to go to prison. The idea is that we take care of this in a quick and judicious fashion, and if they're going to be on probation, to place them on probation, get them out of the jail. If they're going to go to the penitentiary, then put them in the penitentiary so the rest of the state can help us pay for it. But the rest of them need to get out.
Yeah.
We all know the percentage that needs to be in there.
Right. And again, those are not the people. Those are the easy cases.
Yes,
They're
you're
hard,
not going to hear.
But those are the easy ones.
What the incumbent does is bangs her fist on the desk and says, "I'm tough on crime." Well, tell me out there, all you taxpayers, what does that conviction rate? What does that do for you? What do you get out of it? Okay, I'll tell you what you get out of it. You get a bill for $1.8 million to house inmates. That's what you get. And incidentally, when we're talking about conviction rates, my personal conviction rate as far as trial work is much higher than the DA's. I'm in the mid 90% percentile as far as convictions. But understand, folks, don't we hope and trust that the police arrest people that actually commit the offenses for which they're arrested? I mean, saying that we have a 95% conviction rating, isn't that more of a testament to our law enforcement? Just saying. I don't know.
Yeah. So another question about relationships, kind of going back to the relationships with officers, but what about the relationships with the other prosecuting attorneys, defense attorneys? Sorry, I think it's defense attorneys was the question. Yeah.
Oh.
How do you think that relationship is with defense attorneys?
I don't know anyone that isn't paying attention to Facebook. I'm seeing comments coming out of assistant DAs in the DA's office that are unprofessional to a degree that I've never experienced in my career. I've never seen this level of behavior. I mean, they're supposed to be wearing the white hats, and they're lashing out at defense attorneys and belittling them publicly. They're belittling those of us that have the audacity to run against the incumbent. I have never seen this behavior before. And quite frankly, and I'll tell you the most dangerous part of this, when the lashing out started from the DA's office and the personnel in the DA's office, I start getting text messages from patrol officers that are out on the street. Would you like to hear one?
Sure.
Let me see if I can bring it up for you, because I think the quote is poignant. Here we are. I'm not going to tell you where it came from, but this is a direct quote, and this is from one of our patrol officers. Hey, bud, did you see the post from blank? I'm not going to say the name of the assistant DA, and the comments from other employees at the DA's office. I could have sworn the county has a policy for professionalism, gossip, and using your county position as a platform to solicit votes for certain candidates. The blatant lies and fear-mongering that they are pushing to the public is starting to cause issues for the guys working the street. Citizens are judging us because of the DA's lies and false comments to the degree that they are starting to not cooperate with us due to lack of confidence in anything getting done due to the slow, exaggerated process. So not only are we seeing behavior from the DA's office that I consider reprehensible in attacking not only defense attorneys but candidates, it's negatively affecting the people on the street. It's got to stop.
That's huge. So you talked about this, the reason that you're running against the incumbent this year, this term. Who ran against her last term?
Nobody.
And typically, this is not a contested race, is it?
Well, let me put it to you like this. If you have faith in the job that's being done, is it necessary to have someone running against you?
Because again, this isn't necessarily a really fun job.
No, it isn't.
So it's not, speaking to the candidates over and over, I don't get the idea that this is anything that anyone just had on their 5-year vision plan. They felt the duty to step up, and just the fact that there's not one candidate running, but 3.
I think
really
that's a message in and of itself.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's a message in and of itself.
So there's, as I've learned, there's this little anyone but Tharp movement.
Yes.
And do you have concern about a split vote? Because Jennifer has a large amount of people behind her. She's the billboards all over town.
Well, don't confuse people behind her with money. Okay, she got some money, but don't confuse that with supporters. I think the tide is changing. I mean, I'm hearing former incumbent adherents change the way they're thinking, because a lot of this stuff they didn't know. This isn't stuff that people, I mean, think about it. I mean, most of this, the statistics and stuff that we talk about are interesting to geeks like us that work in the system, but not everyone knows it. Not everyone, pays attention to this stuff.
I certainly had no idea.
So don't confuse money with support.
So she does have an element of support. I guess my real question, I wouldn't say concern, but curiosity, is the 3 of you running against her. Are you concerned that it could split the vote too much?
Well, I think it needs to split the vote. I think that's, as far as winning this election, forcing a runoff is vital. In fact, I think statistics will show that if there is a runoff and it includes the incumbent loses 65% of the time. So does more do more candidates participating bother me? Not at all. Because we're going to force a runoff. One of us is going to be in a runoff with her. So if we're extraordinarily lucky, it will be me. No. But obviously, getting it done and getting towards that 65%, that's what's of primary concern.
Let's see. Are you in favor of PR bonds?
Use them all the time.
Let's see if there's anything else. We have a lot of positive feedback.
Requested a lot of them today.
People need to lose their jobs.
Well, just generally speaking, I will tell you that it's and just generally speaking, but usually a new manager wants managers and personnel that embrace his management philosophy. It's nice and politic, isn't it? Like I said, some problems can be fixed day one.
You mentioned when we were on the phone, not of being a fan of term limits.
Yes.
Not being a career politician.
Yes.
So how long do you, if you get elected, how long do you see yourself in this role?
I want 2 terms because it's going to take that long to fix it. If y'all still like me and y'all still like the job I'm doing, I'll do 1 more and that's it. I'm sorry. 3 terms is my limit. It'll take me 2 just to straighten this mess out. But the 3rd one, if y'all like the service, if you like what I have to offer, I'll stay for 1 more. That's it.
That's very cool. Is there anything else that you want to add? Because I think we've done a pretty good job. I don't even know how long we've gone. We've gone a while.
Is anyone still watching?
Oh yeah. We still have active viewers.
3. No.
This was a great interview. I really feel like I got to know him. I like his answers.
Well,
Bail reform. Thank you, Mr. Swanee.
There it is. You're welcome. Thank
Very
you.
informative.
Thank you.
And that really is the goal of what I would like to offer, is just letting you guys get to know these individuals more, giving them a platform just to share and express themselves, whatever they have to say on it. So I will be meeting with the other 2 candidates. I have Mrs. Wigington on Wednesday at 7, Friday at 2, Mr. DeLamos, and then Mrs. Tharp Friday at 7. So I'm going to be very informed by the end of this week, and hopefully you guys will too. And first. You got to be first.
Yes.
Not scary at all.
No, not scary.
And yeah, so keep going with any questions that you guys have. Feel free to inbox me, inbox him, blow his phone up.
Sure.
He would love to chat with you, and he'll probably go through the feed and answer any questions.
Sure.
Feel free to, I'm going to download this video so it can be shared over and over again, which I'm sure Joe would love because he did an awesome job.
Oh, well, thank you.
So, yeah,
it's
you
easy.
guys are
just
great.
Tell the truth.
Yeah, it is. Well, when you're speaking from your heart and you know what you're talking about.
I don't write
it
speeches.
Makes it easy.
I do write them, and then you know what I do when I'm walking up to give one of these, I throw it away. I just speak from the heart.
Yeah. Well, that's the easiest way to do it. So election day is very good. Good question. So today was the last day to register.
To register, yes.
So if you're not registered, you're just going to be really bored for the next few weeks because this is all we're talking about.
Correct.
And let's see.
Early voting starts February 20th. Early voting. I always early vote because I don't like lines. Because the actual election is on Tuesday, March 6th. March 6th is the actual election.
And when you're early voting, you can vote anywhere.
Yes, there's lots of locations,
yeah.
And there's never a line, it seems like. I always early vote.
And we're going to have some events, some voting events. Like I said, we're not endorsing any candidate, we're endorsing the vote. So hopefully we can have some get-togethers, some voting parties, some AM, some PM, and, just go vote and then come have a cup of coffee or chips or whatever.
Nice.
And we're gonna make an event out of this because we really believe in the importance of this election, and it will be affecting us.
Y'all get involved. It's so important. I can't express to you how important it is. We got to do something. Get involved.
Yes, get involved, get educated, and get your vote on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your vote on.
Get your vote on. All right. Well, we'll see you guys later, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.